The J. Michaels Show.
We're all the way up to episode 61. And let me remind you again, subscribe wherever you're getting this show. We really appreciate it when you support the show. Okay, our guest tonight is Kenneth Thompson. He is he's a teacher from what I understand. I'm getting a screen ready here. You're a coach. You do music. You do everything. Tell me about yourself, Kenneth.
First of all, thank you so much, Jay, for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I love the way you do interviews.
Thank you.
You go. I like that you go down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And because those are the most fun, to go down the rabbit holes. So.
And I tell you what I do is I shut up. A lot of interviewers want to interrupt the person while they're talking to them. I don't. I will ask a question, and then I shut up and I let you answer. So go ahead and tell us about you, Kenneth.
Sure. Thank you so much. Well, I'm the founder and CEO of MACSA Musical Arts Center of San Antonio, which is a community music school in San Antonio with 2 locations, and we have about 50 faculty members and employees and stuff. Seeing about 1,000 students a week. So that's kind of my big thing. But prior to that, I was very, very involved in teaching, particularly students who wanted to become virtuoso level pianists. And I did that for a long, long time, and then started focusing more on the school. And prior to that, I was a performing pianist and went to school to be a performing pianist at Eastman School of Music in Rochester. And I got started in kind of a funny way. If you don't mind, I can kind of share
please
some of that.
do. Please go ahead and tell us.
Well, okay, so my dad was a rock and roll musician. He was a bass player, a songwriter. He also was a football player. He was a tackle for Florida State. And became an artist. As a matter of fact, some of these works behind me are his art. So he died in 2009. So, but he was an amazing guy. But he was a bass player. My mom sang backup for him in the band. And so he would play music, when I was growing up. And of course, he played rock and roll music and the music he'd written. And I grew up in the 70s and 80s. So there's a lot of great music coming out around then. But I really wasn't interested in music. I tried a bunch of different instruments out, and I tried trumpet out, and accordion, lots of different things. And we had an old piano. I think my mom spent like $50 on this piano at like an auction or something that came from a bar somewhere. Was painted and stuff like this. And we had it in the house for a long time, and I never really had much of an interest in it, but I started poking around in it sometimes. And at one point I was visiting family in Florida, and my great-grandmother taught me like a little tune. I wish I could remember what the tune was, but she taught me this little tune. And it was kind of fun. I remember like she was paying attention to me. She was like what is it? It was nice to get her full attention at the piano, right, and stuff like this. So, but for some reason, it sort of like it sparked something in me. I mean, I must have been like 12-ish at that time, it was a strange feeling, but I was just obsessed with getting this little song learned. And so, when I went back home, the other thing that occurred, I was a juggler at that time. I was juggling and busking. Juggling around, things like that. And they played ragtime in the background. I should also mention my grandmother on my other side of the family, and my dad's side of the family, was a pianist for silent movies and stuff like that. So anyway, so there's a lot of music around, but I wasn't really interested. That's the point. I wasn't really interested in it. And so this juggling thing and ragtime, and the real thing that did it was there was this girl that was a friend of my mom's friend's daughter who played the piano, and I have to say I had a crush on this girl. So I sort of thought, I'll play piano, and there's a piano around the house. It looks like, hey, I'll learn this. I could play ragtime, and all this kind of stuff. And then I kind of thought I could have something to talk to her about, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Something, something in common.
It's an icebreaker.
And it's an icebreaker, exactly, of course. So anyway, that ended up not working out, but I did fall in love with the piano. So she didn't fall in love with me, but I fell in love with the piano. And it was interesting. I was listening to your interview where you were talking about your discovery of the Native American flute and how you had that experience where you heard the sound and it spoke to you. Yeah.
Right.
I had that same kind of experience, but it was after about 6 months of piano lessons. I was in my room cleaning up, and I had a recording of Beethoven sonatas, and I just put it on there because I didn't even know what a sonata was. I just put it on, and when I heard this particular piece, it just stunned me. It was like it was a conversion moment, and I went from not really being interested in music at all and not really knowing my place in music to just like, I want to do that. I want to play that kind of music. It just took me over. And when you told that story, I was like, "That's so interesting," because it was that same kind of alignment of things. I think I had to be ready for it, because I was exposed to classical music, but I always thought it was kind of boring.
It's like having an epiphany, a musical epiphany. Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a musical epiphany, exactly. And from that point, I was like, I was just a beast, I was practicing like crazy. I was 13 when I got started, so this was been about 13 and a half, and I just became completely obsessed with it,
Right.
And practiced and practiced and practiced. I was very fortunate. Now, this is something I kind of want to get into at some point for the listeners. I was very fortunate that a block from my house was a really good piano teacher who was a nice person and also a really good teacher for people that were getting started. And I was just blessed to find this person, and she was very encouraging and all this kind of stuff. But she kind of set the stage, helped me fall in love with music, helped me get some practice habits, and then helped me then when it was time to go on to kind of like the competition, hardcore teacher. She moved me on after a couple of years like that. So this is the reason I say this is it kind of goes back to the music school thing, is that if you don't end up with a really good first teacher, or if you don't have an epiphany sometime in your life, if you don't do one of those two things, you can miss this. You can totally miss the musical experience. And that's just such a heartbreaking thing. And so people just don't, it's really hard to judge when you're not skilled at something, whether or not somebody is good at teaching it or not, and it's, and I've seen certainly plenty of people that fought through that, if you have like a kind of like, let's say you have the epiphany way before you start the lessons, like there's something in you, right? You can fight through almost anything then, you know what I mean? Even people that are maybe not as supportive of you, but it can be just so, it can be almost going against the what is it? Not against the grain, against the what is it? Current, against the current, like swimming against the current, right?
Right.
If you're determined enough, you're going to make it through. But a lot of people, they end up, just because they don't know how to pick, they end up with teachers that maybe weren't a good fit for them. And that was a big part of why I wanted to start my studio up. So anyway, does that give you a little bit
interesting that you bring that up. I am trying to learn to play guitar.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
had
that's
some
right.
health issues that have interfered with it.
Okay.
But anyway, my first teacher was Gary Talley of the rock group The Box Tops.
Oh, fantastic.
And he was teaching me virtually online. It was during COVID, right when COVID started. And I had the hardest time trying to learn because he wasn't actually there.
Right.
It was on the computer. And I needed somebody, I guess, to take my fingers and say, no, you put these fingers on these strings, And so teaching virtually became an issue for me. And like you say, I kind of lost that epiphany moment, because I really wanted to play, but I was having a hard time learning virtually. Do you teach? Do you teach online? Do you teach classes?
I've done that some. I mean, let's look at this conversation. I mean, I'm in San Antonio. You're in Waco, and goodness, we have this ability to talk to each other. My son is right now having a composition lesson with a person in Austin, virtually. So it's certainly better than nothing, and it's better than having to drive, multiple hours and whatnot.
Right.
There's a lot of teaching that involves our mirror neurons and our and the body language we pick up and the sense of each other that we pick up, particularly from a teacher observing a student point of view, right? There's and also from what the student receives from the teacher. Just like even now, if I have to do an important meeting, I'll usually try to do the meeting in person.
Right.
If there's an important meeting, which is kind of crazy in a way. Like even if we're just talking, it's kind of better to be in person. You get a different sense. You drop some of the formality, I think, that occurs, and you kind of open yourself a bit more, So, and of course, the physical part, right? The physical part of like you said, that is a big issue. It's hard to convey that online. It's just so I would say that let's put it this way: if somebody had a really skilled teacher and the only way to get to them was online versus an in-person teacher that wasn't as skilled, I'd still probably say go with the more skilled teacher online. It's just that the person that if they were equal, I would say in person for sure. Right. And we found it's been really interesting. I kind of imagined that after COVID, we have I think in Waco the traffic's not too crazy, but it's crazy here in San Antonio and Austin, and whatnot. Yeah. So I thought that parents would be all over this virtual thing just for convenience, but in fact, we found that almost everyone prefers in person, and it's only if like I had some students from Austin, and it was like every once in a while we would do online because they had something come up, Right. So we still did the in person. That kind of hybrid in a sense, right? Yeah. So. But I could go down this rabbit hole with you more because it's interesting because you just started guitar, and this is first of all, congratulations for doing that.
Thank you.
We're seeing so many more adults now that are realizing that, hey, guess what? I can learn things.
Yes.
And not only that, it's almost like a renewed. I hate to say adolescence because there's some downsides of adolescence, right? But there's this new phase, like where you sort of have more time, and we have more health span now, and we're seeing a lot of adults who always wanted to, but there's this myth, this terrible myth that you can't learn when you're older, and and what happens is that that hurts us quite a bit, because we don't have much of a choice, right? We can't. I don't know, maybe you've invented a time machine. I have not invented a time machine. And they usually say that, the best time to, this is planting a tree. I'm going to alter it for taking lessons. Let's say the best time to start lessons is 10 years ago. Right. The second best time to start is today.
Exactly.
Right. And that's, you just go. And I would like to, if you're okay with me talking a little bit more about this adult thing, because I think
I don't mind at all. In fact, I was just thinking of that as you were talking. Is the older you get, you can still pick up new tricks.
Oh, totally.
You definitely can. So go ahead, tell me what you're thinking about.
Well, what I wanted to share, because I'm guessing you don't have a lot of preschoolers listening. Maybe that's the case. I don't know the demographics, but I just want to encourage people to go out and learn new things, and challenge their brain. Now, here's what usually happens is that adults, tend to doubt themselves, and it takes them a long time to get around to finally getting around to contacting the teacher. You decide it, and it may take months for you to finally tick that off of your, to-do list, like call the teacher, call potential teachers or something like that. And I'm talking about for chess, for what is it, languages, whatever it is, whatever it might be. All right. So you start doing it, and then you have a fantasy of being finished doing it, right? Of course, what I want to be able to do with this, and then you start to work, and what you find out initially is that it's a lot harder than it seems once you're actually in the lesson. It's harder than it seems. Now, as a 7-year-old, everything is hard. Everything's hard. And you're used to that, and you're used to everything being kind of hard, and you're used to, like, just dealing with that. You're a 7-year-old kid. As a 57-year-old, you start to think, oh, I'm not good at this, and it makes you feel bad. You feel inadequate, right? You feel, because in reality, in a sense, you are inadequate. You don't know that thing. You don't know this thing, and you're trying to learn this thing, whatever it is. But it's very uncomfortable as an adult to open up your heart in that way, to allow someone in to help you learn. Right. And now, and that's the biggest barrier. And also, when you're 7, you don't have a mortgage, you're not paying taxes, you're not paying a car payment. There's things that adults are taking care of for you, right? And it's easier to get that consistent practice time in. But as an adult, we have to sometimes, find those pockets in our day to work on it, But the biggest issue, I think, is the one about esteem and how you feel about yourself doing that thing that's new. Yeah.
It's the belief that I can't do this. I'm too old to do this, or now, if I had the dexterity I had when I was 20,
Sure.
And so these things run through your mind, and yet after you accomplish something on the guitar, even if it's just strumming, you get done with it and you go, wait, wow, I did that. Yeah. Right.
And it feels amazing. It feels amazing. It takes, a while. It's one of the things I like when you were talking about the Native American flute. It sounds like that. It's more like readily, like the part between creating music and learning the instrument sounds like a shorter, but then it sounds like there's this huge, like, where you can go with it, like stratospheric where you can go, which is very, very awesome. I have to say that it has that power, and I can see why it would be so powerfully attractive to anyone, because it opens that door, Yeah. But as you said, I think, and when you were talking, there's these adjacent instruments like the drums and the guitar that you end up that are more complex, perhaps, that you end up wanting to do.
Yeah.
But because you have some confidence now, if you think about it, that confidence with the flute, I'm sure, and your recordings and whatnot, made you feel it helped you ride through the guitar experience in a different way,
Yeah,
perhaps
it does.
Yeah.
Because I've accomplished the other thing, I've learned to play that flute. And so now I'm like, well, this is a different instrument. It's a little more complicated, but I did the other thing, so I can do this.
Right. That's exactly it. And we need. So you actually felt kind of this epiphany happen in a really beautiful way, because it happened. You discovered, you started creating this music. You got to the fun part, the funnister part. Okay. Now and then you're able to create, and then you've used that to bridge into guitar. What happens with guitar, or let's just say instruments that have a tendency to have a longer runway before takeoff. That's the part that the adults struggle with so much, because it's not yet giving you back the stimulus, right? That making music will down the road, but it will. It's very hard to get through that first 6 months or whatever it is, amount of time, whatever your personal runway is to take off. And this is why it's so critical with the teacher you work with. The teacher you work with, this is almost has to be like a miniature psychologist. And they need to be able to sense, when do you need to back off or spread out or settle in a certain thing, and do some, music making, because you could make music with one note, you could make music with nothing, actually.
Yeah.
But you could settle. Meaning, I don't mean settling like you settling for something. I'm saying settle, like get comfortable, get at home in a certain place. You really want someone who is sensitive to you, and can tune into you like that. And that's one of the reasons that when you're looking for a teacher, it can sometimes be hard to find someone like this, because the teachers that are the people that are performers, sometimes can do that. Sometimes they're extremely good at that. And sometimes they're not so good at that. They're great at performing.
Right.
And they're great maybe once you're an advanced player. They're perfect. I usually use basketball as an example of this. like LeBron James would be a great person to study basketball with if you were like an awesome college basketball player.
Right.
But if you're like, again, 7 years old and you're starting basketball, I don't know if LeBron James would be the one to study with, maybe to
Right.
use as an inspiration, but to study with. His focus, his brain is around performing a great basketball game.
Right.
Not on, and then when he works with other people who want to learn how to do a great basketball game, they need to be at a level in the game where they can get what he's, pick up what he's dropping down. Right?
Well, it's like a guitar instructor. If he is a player, he kind of tends to want to impress you more than teach you something. And
that is so true.
And it can be difficult because you're like, I'm not there yet. I need baby steps,
Right. That's so funny. That is exactly what happens. Because the thing is, they're comfortable. So people tend to fall into where they're comfortable.
Right.
If you're comfortable playing and you're in a lesson and you're not reaching the student, what are you going to do? You're going to play some more. And that makes you feel good, but it may not help the student to improve, and probably makes them feel even more inadequate, in some ways. And so the key, usually the way if it's possible, the best way for somebody getting started in something is if you could possibly hear the students of the person.
Right.
That's the key. The students of the person. It's kind of be hard to do that, but because a lot of times these really good starter teachers, the beginning teachers, they don't have the name recognition as some of the performers typically, but in the genre of guitar teaching, those people will be known. Like if you know a lot of guitar people, they'll know, oh, this is the person to go to, right? But the key, and that could be hard to even know how to evaluate, but the key is listen to their students. If the students are not comfortable, in a sense, not that, I mean,
right.
I'm talking about overall,
yes.
That's a sign that this person may be more oriented to something other than bringing you forward.
Right.
So if that makes some sense.
Yeah.
So it's important. It's important. I'll share with you. I had an adult piano student who was, I think she was 30, maybe 32 when she started. She had 2 children, started at 32, and she had, taken lessons a teeny bit and then dropped. She was essentially a beginner, and her dream was to play in church. And she did something that I've had very few adult students actually do, which was that she was very consistent coming to lessons, and she always followed through on everything we did. Now, why I'm saying it, I don't mean to be mean to my other adult students in the past. It's just that when you're an adult and you have so many responsibilities, it's hard to prioritize the lesson. And when you're not prioritizing it, your results are not going to be the same. Right. But anyway, so she came for lessons, had another 2 kids, and studied with for 4 years. Okay. So she's 36 then. She actually ended up getting a church job as a pianist, and she was playing very advanced repertoire. And that was like a 4-year, and obviously, there was some latent talent there and whatnot, but I love that example because she was exactly what we have as an adult, a person with a lot of responsibility, a person with a desire, and a person who put in consistent time and followed directions and did wonderful things with it. So we really have, the brain is so plastic. We really can learn so much, we kind of forget how to not be good at things
right.
when we're grown up, and we forget that it's okay to not be good at things, and we forget that we're still strong and we're still great people and we're still competent in other things, and that in some ways I think it's good for us to always have something working on that we're like not good at. I think that's a great thing to do. It not only does it help your brain, it also helps you develop patience for everyone else. Yeah. It creates an opportunity for humility.
Kenneth, do you believe that there are people who have zero talent? How important is talent to learning to play an instrument?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I'm just going to say now. that I don't believe that people have zero talent. I believe that anyone who likes music, if you like music, there's a musical ingredient inside of you that can be developed. It may, now for some people the talent is very close to the surface. Right. Like it may be, it's like think about a fossil. The fossil could be sticking out of the side of the cliff, right? It's very obvious that they need to be playing guitar or piano or whatever. Some people that fossil, if you will, that musicality is a little bit more buried.
Right.
But music, it's music and language, are very closely intertwined. They're very ancient parts of humanity. Storytelling as well, right? Storytelling, yes. Language, music. I mean, probably there's someone on Earth that has no talent. I guess on Earth, probably. Yet, I would say that you're going to be far better to go with. There is something in everybody that can be developed, and I think what we call talent is that someone has one or more latent abilities that are very close to being uncovered. Yeah. And then they just go about and what happens is it tends to reinforce itself, right? Right. It's close to being covered. They work at it. They get better. They go to a better teacher. They get better still, and that tends to kind of add on. And then the people that are struggling because their talent is more deeply buried, or they may give up before they hit that point. And I have a couple of other little stories about this too, but I can tell you I'm not asking something.
Okay. What is the difference between talent and skill? Oh,
I like that. I would say that what people. So let me put it in this way. Okay. I think how we use these terms has to be. We have to think about what we want to do with the term. If I tell you that you're talented, or I tell you that you're not talented, which I would not do, by the way, I am probably trying to give you, on the talented side, I'm trying to give you a compliment. You're talented. Okay. Yeah. But it's not. There's a tendency with talent to assume that someone kind of emerges fully formed. Right. Fully formed. Now, there are people that are. You can hear them online. There are little kids that can just play insanely well, and I would say in that case that ability is very, very close to the surface, so much so that it can spontaneously develop. And in that case, that's again what we would call talent. But then on the skill side, even they need skill development. So I think what you're saying in a bit when you talk about skill development is the physical ability, the athletic ability to do something. Is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah. And certainly there are people that have like a shorter pathway to developing their physical skills than others. But the pathway is still there. The critical piece of this is, and hopefully the takeaway for people is, it doesn't, whatever it is for you, whatever your pathway is, that is your pathway. Okay. Stop beating yourself up about how long the pathway might be for you and just walk it. Just go. What choice do you have? Right. If you want that, you need to walk your path, whatever that path may be, whether it's this big or whether it's gigantic, but walk the path. Okay. You see what I mean? Yes. So with talent, I've heard, I've had been fortunate to get a lot of, people would say talented students, and typically they have a lot of work to do, much more than people realize. And because part of what happens is sometimes when the talent can manifest, or the ability can manifest, and what happens is they get really good at hiding problems. Right. Like part of it, they hide all these little problems. And what a skilled, advanced, and virtuoso teacher will do is start poking, poke, to unravel these problems and go back and fix them so that they can really be reliable under pressure and stuff like that.
Is it difficult for you to discover these hidden things within someone?
I love doing that so much that I think it's something that's what drew me to teaching so much in the first place. I initially was performing because I wanted to, express myself and all that kind of stuff. and also had the crush on the girl and everything. But when I finally, I was kind of resistant to teaching. I was resistant to piano, and then I was resistant to teaching. Two things that I really love eventually. But I kind of, when I'm with a person, I kind of open myself up. I try to quiet my ego, if you will, down to allow them to feel safe and in the environment with me, and then over time, and sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it takes longer. As they feel safe, they begin to open up, and generally, I can start to see the flashes of what they could possibly do. I do think that anyone can do. I mean, again, we're talking in generalities here. I'm sure there's somebody could say, well, there's somebody who can't do this. Okay, whatever. But I think in generalities, I think anyone can achieve anything they set their mind to, that's physically possible, if they know the path to take and they follow the path. It may be that you don't have time, you might not have energy, you may not know what the path to take. I believe that, you and I, if we could climb Mount Everest, if we really wanted to, if we set aside the time, if we got if we had enough money, if we had, what I'm saying, there's enough, we could do that. And I think that one thing that happens in music a lot, and it happens in academics as well, it's so exciting when somebody is kind of prodigy-like or amazing and virtuous. There's a magic to it. It seems so impossible, and it's a sense of wonder and awe, and that's great. Wonder and awe. Give me some more of that. I'll take more of that, please. And we don't want to mess with that, and that's part of what brings people to concerts, right? Oh, we're going to hear this whiz, perform something or whatever, right? We want to go and witness that,
right?
So, and that's cool. So, in a sense, there's like this side. It's almost like a marketing side, or like a side that gets people excited about something, right? To go hear them,
right?
But the danger with that then is it makes everybody always question: Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? And at some point, you're going to have some problem along the way, and it just makes it that much easier to say, no, I'm going to cut this off, and you know what I mean, and stop doing this because I'm not good enough or whatever. Right. In reality, that person who's spontaneously able to do something, their path was just shorter, but it's not that the path is not available to you,
right? What is your, I don't know, maybe it's a technique, but what do you do for someone who is quitting and you see so much potential, you don't want them to quit, how do you encourage them to keep going?
That's a beautiful question. Yeah, I mean, I think when that happens, it usually happens because there's been a miscommunication about expectations along the way. It usually doesn't happen like in an instant. It's usually like over a few months or something. The expectations have shifted. Like sometimes I'll have somebody come in and they'll be like, I want to be really serious. I want you to push me really hard. So guess what? I'll push them really hard. And now I watch for this now, but when I was a early level teacher, I would keep pushing hard even in spite of them showing like duress.
Right.
And the thing is that now I know how to pick up on that duress signal, and I could check with their parents, I could check with them. Do we need to just go fun for a while, or something like this, as opposed to the real nitty gritty work or whatever. Yeah. So I think you can avoid getting into that situation if you're just checking in with people. People, they have bad days, they have bad weeks, things happen. But it's you probably won't get to that point. No. So the thing is, if you're being aware of where they're at, usually what occurs is they have not, when they're in that position, is that they've lost the musical experience in some way. So like going back to the Native American flute and the fact that you improvise on it, you're in a musical experience when you're doing that. You're in a state of connection with creation, I mean, and it's quite a profound thing to be in that state, but that's what I would call a musical experience. So what can happen when you're really getting into the trenches and really working hard is you can sort of forget to address that this person needs to have a musical experience. And what happens is that's usually when they stop being fed. You know what I mean? I'm doing all this work. I'm not having this experience. So you have to kind of watch for that, because then you have a situation, as you said, with somebody. You don't want to have a situation where someone's flame goes out.
Right.
You know, where their flame goes out. Now, I will say it's not permanent. It's not going to permanently go out, but you can extinguish someone's flame by your tone of voice or by what you say, you know, off the cuff. You have to be very cautious about this. I'm sure you've heard stories. I certainly heard stories of, you know, my teacher said this, my band director said this, and I gave up, you know.
Right.
And that just kills me, you know. To hear that. It's something that we have to be very, very cautious about, you know, with people. So we don't want that to go out. And if you have somebody who quits, then it doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are, right? Or whatever, they're not being reached, you know. So,
is there anything that you can do that can trigger someone to have one of these musical experiences? As a teacher, can you do that?
Absolutely. This is one of the things I really enjoy doing. I'm kind of giving this away, so your listeners will expect this if I ever meet anybody. I love to do improvisation with people that have never played before. And that's why when you mentioned about the improv on the flute, I was like, wow, that's exactly it. So there are, you know, as you know, there are scales, pentatonic scales you can use that work together beautifully, you know. And so one of the things I try to do early on, and I'll do it sometimes with the parents of the students as well, is I'll do some improvisation with them, where they just play the black keys. You know, they just play anything on the black keys, right? And so, but that is something that I like to do early on to open people up to what a musical experience is.
Yes.
And it's really amazing whenever I love to do this with parents, because they don't expect me to, like, oh, come over, let's play, and then they'll start improvising, and then I'll get usually them and their child to start improvising together. And it's so cool, you know, because they've kind of shut themselves off, because we as parents have a tendency, like, okay, you know, it's not my turn now it's my child's turn to do everything, you know, and we forget that we're also children. I mean, we are children too inside of our adult bodies. And when they do that, there's some shields that come down, and they're just enjoying the sound, and that's really critical, because they also need to understand, right? The parent needs to understand that this is something quite profound and wonderful, and they may have subverted themselves, you know, over the years, whatever. So,
you know, you were talking about that with the Native American style flute. I can take a flute and any person and give me 15 minutes, and I'll teach you how to play the instrument. You will be able to play it. You'll be able to come up with little tunes and all. Now, whether or not you're any good at it, you know, do you develop the skill? Do you develop the ability to improv with it? Do you know when to slow down and when to speed up? Things like that you have to learn in time.
Right.
But give me 15 minutes and I can teach anybody how to play that instrument. So you're saying that with the keyboard, with the piano, you can do the same thing with the black keys.
Right. Yeah, because it's a very fortunate the way the keyboard's set up. Because like if you and I were together, I would start playing something, you know, behind you and say, okay, play anything on the black keys, and I could sort of, I listen and watch what you're doing and kind of shift around, you know, to kind of support that. Like it's like a live backing track, basically, right? You know, and it's just a magical thing, you know. It's a magical. It's why I'm saying this is that when I've done this with people that typically have not played, and they usually have some, like, they know what a piano is, right? They've seen a piano, but it's like, that's not for me. Or
they're terrified of it.
They're terrified of it, right? Or maybe they had a bad experience, you know, earlier in their childhood or something like that, you know. And it's so cool to watch that dissolve, you know. It's really, really amazing. And you've seen that when you do the flute, right? I mean, you see that you do 15 minutes and you've witnessed what I'm talking about, right? And it's a really powerful thing. I mean, we all respond to music coming into our ears, into our ears and into our body.
Uh-huh.
But when we're producing it from our body, right, we're imagining something and then we're producing it from our bodies out into the world, then we then get to hear it again, right? There's just something extremely, where we're connected to the ether,
Right.
and to the universe, and that's something I think we all crave, as humans. We crave that spiritual connection, and it's so easy to be stuck in traffic and somebody honks the horn at you and you get mad, and all the spiritual stuff you forget. Oh, that's another spiritual being over there, and it's like we desperately need this connection.
Right.
This is kind of what we get, getting back to even lessons in person versus digital versus virtual. When you're in person with someone, breathing the same air as them,
right,
there is it's a little that spiritual energy, that creation in the moment experience is more present, and we crave that, and the sad thing is we're on screen so much now that we forget the taste of it. We forget the taste of human connection, and when we're connecting through music and connecting to music, it's really putting us in touch with the fundamental elements of creation, I think.
right,
and that's why it's so powerful. That's why everybody who's been there sort of talks like I sort of feel like I'm giving you crazy talk here. I'm doing the crazy music talk, but if you've been there, if you've done it, you understand how magical and transformational it is to be attuned to musicality, and it's very centering. It's very centering to us as humans, and I think it's almost another aspect of meditation in a sense. Meditation helps with that as well, but there's an aspect of it that is musical as well. So
people will often ask, what is the easiest instrument to learn? Is there an easy instrument and a difficult instrument?
Oh, I love that. Okay, so you act well. Of course, the Native American style flute, now we know,
right,
is on let's say the runway is shorter to making music happen.
Right.
And here's the other issue about this. Usually the instruments that are the easiest to learn are the hardest to master, in a sense, right? Because there's so much you can do with them. Okay, so I would say like voice is easy to learn,
yes,
in a sense. Piano is easy to learn in a sense. Native American flute is easy to learn. Drums, Now, let's look at drums. Okay, it's easy to make a sound of drum, boop, 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 boop. But the array of things you could do with drums is so enormous, right? But in terms of learning to play, it's pretty easy, right?
Right.
To learn, and of course, strumming on the guitar, maybe that's kind of easier, I suppose. But I would say any of the instruments that are really ancient, like the voice, the flute, the actually, the keyboard doesn't fit in that category, but it's not that ancient. But I'll borrow it.
Sure.
It's old enough. So I would say that let's say that people are like scared, right? They're scared of right. Okay, I would say I love. I mean, I've learned about the flute through your show.
Right.
I'm actually wanting to get one of these now.
You need to get one.
Yeah, I need to get one. I need to get one. Yeah. And so I mean, so the thing I think people need to do is to, if what they need is a shorter, let's say they're very busy and very stressed in their life, they have no time. They have no time. Get one of those instruments that either singing or the flute or the drums, something that is where the runway is a little shorter at the beginning, so you can get over that hump, so you can get in the flow, so you can get in the habit, so you can learn what is it like to be fed when you're musically hungry, and then you could say, okay, now I'm ready, maybe for something else. And now on the opposite, I'm wondering what the most difficult instrument might be. Organ's pretty hard. I think organ's hard. And I'm sure there's more that are harder than that. But anyway, does that answer the question?
Well, do you teach also, we've talked about piano, guitar, things like that. Do you teach things like tuba or
well, me personally, okay, so me personally, I teach piano, but at the
Right.
school we have voice and we have strings and clarinet and banjo even, and a lot of piano. So I don't teach tuba. I like tuba. I mean, when I was a little before piano, I thought tuba was pretty awesome because you could play the doom 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 doom. Those parts, those are pretty cool. And I guess because my dad was a bass player in his band, that was attractive. But one of the things that's kind of in San Antonio, at least, a lot of the public schools have orchestras and bands, and so a lot of kids get their experience and their exposure to those instruments through orchestra and band, and they don't do so much. That's one of the reasons why having a school with piano as its sort of biggest instrument that we offer kind of works because there's really not a resource for piano lessons quite as much as are with the band and orchestra instruments. So yeah, I mean, I think people get drawn to anybody that I know that's fallen in love with an instrument. It's almost like what is it? Like a spirit animal or something. It's like their spirit instrument. There's something about it because for me too. Like I tried all these different instruments, and partially I think it was that maybe the teacher didn't engage me too much. And I happened to find this really good piano teacher, but what it felt like was I was trying these things on and they just weren't quite right. Trying on the trumpet, not quite right. Accordion, not quite right. Piano, oh wow, this is it. For me. And once you find that, you got a lifelong of growth there. And that's including if you started at age 70. You know what I mean? So
you've studied with Nelita True and Anton and you've been featured in the music business. Tell me a little about how well known are you?
Oh gosh, well that's it. There was a time when I was more well known, and I purposely when I used to have kids performing and doing competitions. Texas actually happens to be a really, really big piano state, but it's sort of true in everything. It's a big football state. It's a big, orchestra state. It's a big, whatever it is in Texas, it's going to be big, right? It's a huge state. And I wasn't expecting that the level of piano playing in Texas was going to be as high as it was when I got here. I was amazed at how well the pre-college level students played. So back in that time, I was much better known because I was playing some and I was teaching a lot. After I started MACSA, Musical Arts Center of San Antonio, after about 10 years, I realized I had to start focusing on the school itself as opposed to teaching so much. So I cut back dramatically on that. And now, because I'm writing this book, I'm trying to kind of get back out there again. That's part of the reason I'm so delighted to be talking with you today, just to kind of talk about teaching, talking about music, and opening hopefully encouraging people to take lessons from anyone, but hopefully people that they can maybe do get a sense of what to look for with a person that's going to really jive with them. So
how far along are you on your book right now?
Well, I've got over 100,000 words written, but I think it's obviously too big, and it's probably going to be 2 or 3 works because I had written a lot of it many years ago, just purely on teaching itself. The thing that I've been writing on mostly now, this is what I'm thinking is going to be separated out to make its own book, is I'm writing about the relationship between parents and teachers and students. There's this triangle, this relationship there. And there are all these interesting dynamics that get played out between those 3 entities. Now, if you're an adult student, you're kind of playing the role of a parent and the student because you're paying for the lessons and you're selecting the teacher and all this. So even then, though, it's sort of useful to think of it as I'm playing the parent and the student role. But there's this dynamic that gets between everyone. I'm gonna go back a little bit and tell you how I got into this. So when I first was teaching, and I really decided to be serious about teaching, I was doing 7 days a week. I did it for 6 years, 7 days a week, and I would teach for like 90 or 100 days and take a day off. It was crazy. But I did all these experiments, and I tried to see how good could I get, like, quote unquote average students. This is before, like, what I just talked about with the pathways and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
That stuff I've learned in the last many years. But when I was first starting, I had to learn this. I was doing these experiments. How skilled could I get someone to be, even if, in particular, if they didn't immediately show the skill. You see what I mean? Like, right. I wanted to see like how good. So I did all these like experiments with different groups of students, kept track of everything, and I got really skilled at breaking things down into small amounts, smaller and smaller concepts, so people could absorb them. And I did this a lot, and I still wasn't getting the results that I wanted. I mean, it was definitely better, but it wasn't the results I wanted. And so then I started thinking more about motivation.
Right.
Because I've seen other people, with less skilled teachers, the students sometimes still do really, really well. But the teacher was really good at motivation, like motivating the students. And when you're motivated, you could run through a brick wall, I mean, theoretically, right, without any training, right? Essentially, if you're really motivated. So motivation is so powerful that it almost is more powerful than knowledge in a sense.
It's belief. It's the
belief
that you can do it.
Belief that you can do it. Like the power of the mind. It's quite extraordinary. So then I started thinking, okay, I have all this stuff. That's not the whole answer. It's part of the answer. Like in other words, it's like I have the tools to climb the mountain, and I know the pathway to climb the mountain, but not everybody's making it to the top of the mountain. Like, why aren't they just going? Okay. Oh, they need to see they need to believe they can get there. They need to be excited about getting there, right? They have to be motivated, and they have to be motivated in different ways at different stages.
They have to see themselves at the top of the mountain before they begin.
Exactly. They have to see the top, and then on the way, they need to have these little miniature motivational goals, right? On the way. Okay. So that's a big part of what I started to mess with that's another word for experimentation. With at MACSA was creating all these like different motivational things to get people at different levels of interest kind of to move along that pathway. So, but still, there were still issues sometimes. And I started to realize that this has been my more recent realization, is that a lot of the barriers, so here you are, exactly how to climb the mountain, you got the tools, the pathways, you even have a bunch of people that are motivated. Still, things can get in the way. Well, what's getting in the way then? What's getting in the way then is the teacher's sense of themselves and the sense of what they're doing in the world, the student's sense of themselves and what they're doing in the world, and the sense of the parent and their sense of themselves and what they're doing in the world. The way those things interact is quite, there's quite a bit of variation there, right? In terms of, like, you have very serious teacher, not very serious parent, and maybe moderately serious student. Well, that's a very different dynamic than if they're all serious, quote unquote, or if they're all not serious, quote unquote. And so that, and of course I see that a lot because we have so many, we've done, hundreds of thousands of lessons and had all these, parents and students and everything. So this, I don't know if this is the complete answer, but it's a little bit further along. It's a little bit further along that, like, that is a factor in your success. Is how does the teacher and the parent and the student interact with each other? Like that is a big factor. And if you can smooth that out, or at least not get offended by someone when they maybe send you the wrong signal, because, oh, okay, they're just sort of, that's the way they are, or whatever. Then that motivation it has a faster pathway, and then of course all the tools that you can share. So that part of it, I think is kind of often overlooked, and that's why I've gotten so deep into it now with the writing. So probably what's going to happen is that there's a lot of the book that's kind of like the tools and things like this that are more like niche sort of things that are for people that are really teaching. But I think this stuff about parents and students and teachers, and then also the energy it takes to do all that. That's another thing I address is like, well, if I'm as a teacher doing my best for you, and I'm also a parent doing my best for my child. That's the other thing. We play we're at different times we are a parent or a teacher or a student. Like the same individual, like could be all of those things in an afternoon, right? In an afternoon, I'm teaching my son a thing. I'm taking him to a lesson, so I'm a parent. I'm a teacher sometimes, or I'm a student myself, taking lessons myself in something, or learning something, reading a book on, some topic. So I think that understanding how that dynamic piece. I sometimes say, like, if especially for teachers too, when you're in or new parents, it's like you're in this ocean, you're on a boat, and there's a wave coming here, there's rain coming here, but you can learn, oh wait, that kind of wave's going to do this next. Okay, that kind of rain's going to do this probably. Okay, I'm on this kind of boat, it's probably going to react like this, Yeah. So you have a way to kind of maneuver those little idiosyncrasies that can happen in those relationships that if you don't do that, that's part of where the things will start to break down. That's where people step on each other's toes, or the wrong message is sent, or something like that, and then suddenly things go sideways when they don't have to. So so that's kind of that's where my brain's been mostly invested lately.
People will say, "Well, life got in the way."
That's it.
How do you deal with that when they tell you that okay, they're off track now?
Well, life can bring some pretty challenging situations.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been around for a while knows that. Life. Obviously, if somebody, I'm not going to if somebody has a real crisis on their hands, right? That things sometimes take a lot of time. The question then is, what do they do after the crisis is gone? Do they come back, or do they not come back? I think that sometimes, just like this, like the reason a lot of people quit, like there's this whole generation, at least when I was in probably my 30s or 40s, when I would fly. If you mention, that you're a piano, if somebody asks you, what do you do? You're a piano teacher. They would usually say, the person next to you, oh, I used to take lessons and I quit when I was 12. And then they would go into that. And usually what would happen in this story is that, because, if you're sitting in a long flight and you're going to ask questions, is that they had a traumatic performance experience. Like they got up in front of people, they had a memory slip or something happened. And of course, there's a lot of anxiety with that, right? Mm-hmm. And they had a traumatic experience, and then they quit because it's public humiliation, right? That's like a terrible thing. Okay. Now, if you dig further, because I had a couple of people who did this, and I dug deeper, I asked them, okay, well, what did you do to get ready for that performance? Mm-hmm. And they would almost always say something like, oh, what are you talking about? I just was playing it, and I went up and played it, and then I fell apart, and I like, well, then did you, there are all these ways to get ready for the pressure of the performance. And if you don't do them, and you're not an experienced performer, the energy of the fight or flight response will take you over, and you won't know what's happening.
Right.
So, and that's a natural response, but people used to not talk about that stuff back in the day. They do now a lot, but so many people quit. So many adults who wish they had not quit tell that story, that they had a traumatic experience. They don't say it this way. I had a traumatic performance experience. It's just more as you dig. They had a traumatic performance experience, and they did not prepare to perform. You see, that's the kicker. It's very, one of the issues with performing, if you perform longer shows, is usually after the first 10 minutes, the nerves go from nerves that can make you play worse or perform worse to where actually the nerves help you, like the energy. You feed off the energy of the crowd, right? So it's about 10 minutes or so. About 10 minutes is what I usually experience and what most people talk about, about 10 minutes. Now, most students who play go through almost their entire playing career, pre-college up through college, and they play less than 10 minutes. Right. When they get up, they're going to play a 2 or 3 minute piece. Right. And they're going to sit in the audience and wait for like 30 minutes, getting cold, and then get up in front of everybody and play this. It's like the worst possible situation to perform in, and that's what they're used to. You see what I mean? That's what's normal.
Yes.
And of course, you also need to perform. As you perform more and more and more and more, right? You get accustomed to these things and you know what to do. So one of the reasons that it's very important to know that if someone had this kind of experience as a child that made them stop lessons, that all that means is they didn't know what to do to help get ready for a performance. It's
Right.
quite different than the learning of the skill. The learning of the skill and then being able to do the skill at your house or in the lesson is different than the skill of putting that forward in front of a group of people that is intimidating to you in some way. That's a different skill. It's a very, very useful skill, but it's a different skill. And most people don't address that issue. And because that's where that issue of the magic, right? Like
Right.
we want to believe it's magic in a sense. Yeah.
It's like the axiom of if you say I'm going to perform well or I'm going to fail, you're right both times.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. Because you're playing this game in your mind. I don't know if you've read the awesome book on sports psychology, Inner Game of Tennis. He talks about that so much. This inner game, this inner dialogue. And the thing is that happens not just in music, right? If you're doing, I mean, even, talking like this, or if you're making a speech, or if you're, taking a test. My friends in high school would get nervous before taking tests. Now, I was so obsessed with piano that I didn't care what happened on the test. So I wasn't nervous. I actually did pretty good on the test and they were like not doing as well as they wanted or could have done because they were nervous. And I wasn't nervous because I didn't care in a way. And that was by the way, I don't recommend that. It was a bad thing for me to do, but I'm just saying that there are things that people get nervous for anytime. I mean, a date, right? Yeah. People get nervous for a date. I mean, anything where the downs, there's a big upside and a potential big downside, and you're going to have to do something in real time. You have to deal with this stuff. And music is a really good way to learn these skills before, you're up making a speech in front of a bunch of people or whatever.
Kenneth, earlier on, you said something about a piano teacher. I made a note 1 block, and you were going to tell a story about that. So go ahead and tell us the story now.
Well, just that I think one of my teacher was on the was literally a block away from me, and one of the and that was like divine intervention that this great teacher happened to be right there. She was very accepting and very open. I was an older beginner, and so she was not, even when I told her that I had this dream of being really amazing at the piano, she kind of like went with it, She didn't say what she could have said was, you have no business even thinking about this. You're 13 years old. You're never going to be able to do this. And I might have believed her. I might have at that time, and she didn't do that. She was just like, okay. And I have to say that was really remarkable, because one of the things she was being was very open, She was being very open because sometimes teachers will try to, and this is a little bit like what you were talking about before with people will sort of start playing, right, instead of helping you, is they try to kind of emphasize the power differential a little bit, like that they kind of, they try to say that they try to lord it over you a little bit, and right. She didn't do that. She was very, very supportive. But there was something else that we were talking about, and now I'm forgetting where I was going to go with it. It may come up again. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway.
Okay. Well, let's see. Now you've got a book that you're working on, and it's coming. Yes. Are there any articles or publications that someone could go online and find and read that you've written?
Well, I've been interviewed for a few things. There's a UK Rolling Stone UK on AI music and music education. We got a really nice write up in USA Today with our 25th year, and then success.com. We have something on music making you smarter, or I might be mixing that with one of the other ones. It's about how to choose a piano teacher or a music teacher for your child and things like that. But what I'm doing right now with the book, I'm actually trying to find develop like a book coach, a teacher. I'm looking for a teacher. And I'm going through the same kind of processes, talking with people and letting them look at what I have and seeing how they feel. And I'm trying to feel out, are they going to be like, this is terrible. What are you thinking? Or are they going to be like, hey, this needs work, but it has potential.
Right.
I'm kind of keeping an open mind there, but The main thing I would like people to take away ideally from this conversation is that if you have doubted yourself, and if you ever wished you could play an instrument, please start.
Right.
Please start. Don't put it off. Just start. Start with anything. Start with the flute. Start with singing. Start with a drum. Start with an instrument. Look in your closet. There's a lot of people have old instruments in their closet.
Yeah.
Start, because it's such a great. It opens up so many worlds, and also the people you meet. Right, the people you meet through that that instrument. And don't make it one of those things you're going to do someday.
Right.
Don't make today the day that you're going to do something about it, because you will feel better about yourself and your life if anytime you activate any of these things that you've put off. You know what I mean, for
right.
someday. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I would like people to. I mean, that's part of the reason I guess here is to sort of promote the idea that people need to be taking lessons, and also but to also be aware that to really check out the instructor and make sure that they're a good fit for you. Yeah.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to contact you directly,
yes,
you're on Instagram for one thing.
Yeah,
I know I found you there.
That's right. Right.
And then through your they're in San Antonio, your organization. Give us the contact info.
Absolutely. So you can send me a message on ken.creativecoach on Instagram, or you can email me at kThompson@MACSAINC.com. Musical Arts Center of San Antonio, we call it MACSA. You can look us up online. But what the key thing here is research, and I will give you another good resource. Music Teachers National Association, mtna.org, has a Find a Teacher button on their website. And not every single great teacher in the world is in that organization, but the people that are in there are plugged in and are very, very dedicated to teaching. So that's a really good resource for everyone.
Kenneth Thompson, thank you so much for being on my show and being my guest.
Jay, it's been an absolute delight, and I'm so grateful for you to share me with your audience. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you next time on the show.
Goodbye.